Now, the good news for all of this is that there are 3 environments that shape every employee experience for every organization around the world. 3 environments. And those 3 are culture, technology, and physical space. Now, in doing research for my previous book on employee experience, I had the opportunity to study 252 organizations around the world. This includes all the Fortune 100, all the Fortune 100 best places to work, and a couple others I was personally interested in. And I looked at all these organizations, and I classified them into a series of categories. And what I found is from the 252 companies, only 6% do an amazing job of investing in employee experience. 20% of organizations, I looked at them and I thought, how are you still in business? And interestingly enough, some of them are filing for bankruptcy, they're being acquired, they're merging. Totally not surprised. Only 6% of organizations do an amazing job when it comes to investing in employee experience. 6%. Now, the reassuring news was that 23% of organizations are doing a very good job. They're not quite there, but they're almost there. Now, oftentimes when people look at this, of course, the first question that comes to mind is, what's the ROI of doing this? Why bother? I looked at ROI across 3 levels. The first thing that I looked at was business metrics. And business metrics, well, the first thing actually I looked at was anecdotal data. So just interviewing with executives, and they would tell me, yes, our employees appear more productive, they appear happier, we think good things are happening. And then I looked at how often do these organizations, these experiential companies, appear in other best of lists. Best places to work, most valuable brands, highest customer satisfaction scores. And here, too, across the board, we see that companies that invest in employee experience appear on these other lists more often. Then I looked at the actual business metrics, revenue, profitability, headcount. And here again, we see organizations that invest in employee experience outperform the competition. Not only that, but they're smaller in size, they have lower turnover, and they're more productive in terms of revenue and profitability. The last thing that I looked at was stock price performance. I created fictitious portfolios, and I looked at how do these organizations perform when compared to the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the best organizations to work for, and here, too, the experiential organizations outperform everybody else. Now, as I mentioned before, the good news is that there are 3 things that shape every employee experience at every employee for every company on planet Earth. And these 3 things are culture, technology, and physical space. These are the 3 things that shape employee experiences. And this is also crucial for you because not only can you shape experiences, but experiences are important for you as employees, as individuals. So let's start off with physical space. We used to always think that physical space was just walls, a ceiling, dogs that might be running through the office, right? Posters that we hang on the walls. It's literally just space. But what we start to see now through research is that the physical space acts as a symbol for your organization. So think of your favorite superhero, Wonder Woman, Batman, Spider-Man, whoever it might be. They have their logo or their symbol that represents who they are. And in the eyes of employees, the symbol is the space in which employees work. The physical space acts as an artifact that represents your organization. It's what helps connect an employee's sense of purpose and meaning to the organization. Physical space matters. And physical space comprises 30% of the overall employee experience, 30%. Now, I mentioned culture, technology, and physical space, but the interesting thing is that these 3 things don't live in isolation. Technology, for example, impacts culture. Technology also impacts physical space. Right? I mean, if you go into a conference room, if you work in a certain area, you need to make sure that you have the right technology there so that you can work effectively. Think about how technology impacts culture. If you introduce different types of collaboration tools, real-time recognition and feedback, that changes the culture. It breaks down the hierarchy. It helps eliminate silos in the organization. So technology has a really profound impact on how the organization actually operates. This is why the world of IT is changing so much. Right? The stereotype IT professional resetting passwords, wearing the white lab coats, that's gone. Right? That's not the IT professional anymore. The IT professional now is the one who shapes the future of work for the organization. You build the future of work. And a lot of IT people just do not realize this. Right? The extreme power that you guys have, the extreme responsibility that you have.
Do you want to hear something really crazy? 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll literally take you 1 second, and you'll get notified when more videos just like this one are available. Now, let's get back to the content.
I actually haven't shared this with anyone yet. I'm working on a new book on the future of leadership, which will hopefully come out at the end of this year. And as a part of the book research, I've interviewed over 120 CEOs at companies around the world, 120 CEOs. And one of the things that I ask them is, what are the greatest trends that will impact work and leadership over the next decade? Do you know what the #1 trend was across the board? Technology. Technology. Nothing else even came close. So I really want to stress that all of you in this room have a very exciting path ahead of you, because you're really helping shape what organizations are going to look like. So physical space, 30% of the overall employee experience. The second environment is technology. Technology, as I alluded to before, is the central nervous system of the organization. It's what connects everything. All these concepts that we talk about on the future of work are coming from technology. Without technology, there is no future of work. Just not possible. I remember a couple years ago, I went to go speak in Europe for a large financial institution. And after I gave a talk, I had the opportunity to interview a lot of employees who work there. And I would interview them all one by one, and I would ask them the same questions. And they would all tell me, we love our physical space, we love our corporate culture, we're all looking for a new job. And I thought, that's weird. Why would you want to look for a new job? You love the people, you love the corporate culture, it's a gorgeous space. Why would you possibly want to go work elsewhere? Technology. This company literally had technology that was designed in the 80s and the 90s. They had no flexible work. They had no real-time recognition and feedback. Everything was very hierarchical. They were duplicating each other's work. They became very frustrated to the point where they actually could not do their jobs. And because of that, they started to resent the organization, and eventually they didn't want to have any part of that organization. So technology is not just an IT thing. Because what happens inside of organizations and what happens with your customers is that when technology breaks down, it becomes a human problem. I mean, think about it. Think about times when you as a customer interacted with a brand. Think about times when you, inside of Nationwide, had issues with technology. When it breaks down, you get a human reaction, right? You get emotional about it. You get upset. You get frustrated. Or, if you have a great experience with technology, you get delighted. You get excited. My goodness, this was easy. This was amazing. So you don't just focus on the technology piece. You actually also have a profound impact on the human side of work. I know there's also a lot of talk about automation. There's a lot of debates about automation and what's going to happen. And again, from the 120 CEOs I interviewed, the overall outlook is very optimistic. All the CEOs that I interviewed have been very optimistic about the role that technology will play in the future of work. Now, they also acknowledge that there will be some changes, some areas might be a little bit impacted, but overall, the general theme is optimism, is opportunity. It's not human versus technology, it's human with technology against problem. And the really interesting thing is I asked these CEOs, what's the best way that we as individuals can future-proof our career in a world that's being driven by technology? What do you recommend that we do? What would you tell your employees to do if they were worried about technology and artificial intelligence? And the number one response here was curiosity. Curiosity. Be a perpetual learner. And all of these CEOs echoed the same sentiment, that you can't rely just on your companies, you can't rely just on educational institutions to teach you everything you need to know to be successful. You have to be accountable over your own personal and professional development. You have to be that perpetual learner. But the good news is it's never been easier to do that. I mean, you can learn pretty much anything you want, anytime, anywhere, on any device. You can go onto YouTube and learn anything. I mean, you have, 200 plus sessions here alone? You could learn anything. It's never been easier to do so. But as individuals, we need to take more accountability over our personal and professional development. We have to future-proof our careers, our own lives. And part of this also means paying attention to the tangential. So what do I mean by paying attention to the tangential? A lot of us are very much focused on what's in front of us. And sometimes we don't take a step back to look a little bit at the big picture to see what's happening in the world. I'll give you an example. Let's say you worked on Wall Street over the past few years. Wall Street, and you were an analyst, right? I mean, you had that technical background. And we know what happened to a lot of those types of jobs. But if you were an analyst, if you were somebody that was very involved with Wall Street, and you paid attention to the tangential, you would understand the impact that technology would be having on your job. And the first question that you would ask yourself is, where else can my skills be applied? Where else can my skills be applied? I'm good at data. I'm good at analysis. Is this only for finance? And you would quickly realize the growing field of data analytics, of people analytics. And you would make a pivot. You would teach yourself some of the additional things that you would need, and you would quickly be able to pivot. That's what paying attention to the tangential means. Focus on your skills, not on the job. Jobs are meant to be automated. Skills are not. If you purely focus on your job as one path, one direction, one area, it's not going to end up in a good direction for you. Focus on the skills that you have and how you can apply those skills to different areas. That is the general theme. That's been the perception that these 120 CEOs keep telling me. Focus on the skills, not on the job. Technology, too, has a 30% impact on the overall employee experience. So it's not insignificant. 30%, it's as much as physical space. And again, when we talk about technology, hardware, software, apps, all these different things are a part of the technology side for employees. The third environment is corporate culture. Corporate culture refers to how we feel being a part of the organization. How do we feel being a part of the organization? And there are a lot of different ways that we use to describe corporate culture, don't we? Sometimes people say it's what happens when the manager leaves the room. I prefer to think of corporate culture as the side effects of working for your company. The side effects of working for your company. When I was working on a previous book, I was watching a show on TV. And in the middle of the show, there was a commercial that came on for a prescription drug. And it got to the side effects of the prescription drug. Nausea, weight gain, hair loss, skin discoloration, bleeding from the eyes, and in some cases, death. And I thought, who in their right loony-toony mind is going to take this kind of a drug? But then I thought about it for a minute, and I realized that most people in the world work for an organization that has those exact same side effects. Think about that for a minute. Most people in the world work for an organization where from prolonged exposure, you gain weight. You lose your hair. You get in arguments with your spouse. Bleeding from the eyes. We've all been to those meetings. And in some cases, death. So why is it that we're not willing to take the prescription drug, yet we're willing to subject ourselves to work for those types of organizations week after week, month after month, year after year? So when I say side effects, that's what I mean. But by the way, the side effects do not have to be bad. Side effects of working for your organization can be great. They can be a sense of empowerment. They can be a sense of curiosity, of purpose, of meaning. You need to ask yourselves, what are the side effects of working for your company? Now, interestingly enough, whenever I meet with executives one-on-one, I always like to ask them a fun question. And I always say, if I were to bottle up what it was like to work at your organization, and I put it into a pill, and I gave you this pill right now, and if you swallowed this pill, you would experience all of the side effects instantly, both good and bad. Would you be willing to swallow the corporate culture pill? And guess what almost all of them say? Nope. Which is a little funny, but I also think it's more sad. Because as leaders, sometimes we expect other people to do things that we ourselves are not willing to do. So you need to swallow that corporate culture pill first before you ask anybody else to swallow that corporate culture pill as well. Throughout most of my life, I was a terrible student. In high school, my GPA was a 2.79. Community college, where I went to afterwards, I got a 2.8. Then finally, I went to the University of California, Santa Cruz. Banana slug. There's not one banana slug here? All right, I'll see you guys later. Usually, there's always one. So I went to UC Santa Cruz. I double majored in economics and psychology. I graduated with honors, and I was really, really excited to join the corporate world. And I'll never forget my first job out of college in Southern California. And I went to interview for this organization, and I was told the story. Amazing place to work, wonderful people, great technologies, you're going to love your job. And I thought, okay, sign me up. And I was willing to forego my 3-hour daily commute. Hour and a half to work, hour and a half back from work, bumper to bumper LA traffic, the 101, the 405, worst traffic on planet Earth. But I thought, you know what? It's a cool story, I'm going to take the job. A couple months in, I'm doing data entry, cold calling, PowerPoint presentations. And I'll never forget one day the CEO coming up to me. He says, Jacob, I got a really important project for you. Now, as you can imagine, I got excited at this point because I thought, okay, it's about freaking time. A couple months, you promised me this, let's hear it. And he says, well, I'm late for a meeting. Here's $10. I need you to go run down to Starbucks and get me a cup of coffee. And by the way, get yourself a latte as well. You're so generous. Thank you very much. My initial response was, are you out of your damn mind? This is why I worked so hard in school and graduated with honors, is to get you a cup of coffee? Get your own stupid freaking cup of coffee. That's what I said on the inside. On the outside, I said, oh, of course, I would love to get you that cup of coffee. Hope it burns your face off. And that was one of the last full-time jobs I've ever had more than a decade ago. And ever since then, I've been really passionate and interested in leadership, the future of work, employee experience, all these things that we're talking about today. Now, contrast this story to one that's oftentimes told about President Kennedy. Now, the story goes that President Kennedy was one day visiting the NASA Space Center. And as he's getting a tour, he sees a man walking down the hall with a broom and a bucket. And President Kennedy stops the tour, and he goes over to the man, and he says, hi, I'm President Kennedy. What do you do here? And the man with the broom and the bucket stops, and he says, I helped put a man on the moon. He didn't say I restock paper towels. He didn't say I sweep the bathroom floor. He said, I helped put a man on the moon. It's a very different corporate culture than the one that I was a part of. So corporate culture is how we feel. Now, unlike the other two environments, corporate culture is 40% of the overall employee experience. And corporate culture is something that we learn, right? Something that we learn from leaders, from employees who are part of the organization. So it's important for us to think about these things. So these are the three environments that shape all employee experiences for every employee around the world: culture, technology, physical space. So a couple things that I think that you as an organization can start doing now. The first thing is it doesn't matter what role you're in, whether you're in IT, whether you're in HR. Think about these three elements of culture, technology, and physical space. Every decision that your organization makes, culture, technology, space, how does it impact how employees feel? How does it impact the tools and resources employees have to do their jobs? How does it impact the spaces in which employees work? And by the way, it doesn't just have to be relevant for employees. This can also be applicable for customers. How does this impact the way customers feel? How does this impact the tools and resources that customers have access to at their disposal? And does this impact the spaces where we engage and interact with our customers? So think about these three elements and understand that as IT professionals, you shape not just technology, but you also shape culture, you also shape physical space. That is kind of the new IT profession. You impact more than just the technology side of it.